Folks, yes, it is time for some NFL talk. August 19th, 2020, sportsbookreview.com. This is your NFL headquarters, and this is your NFL show. We don't have anything live to show. We don't even have preseason games to go off of, but you know what? We got information, and we are going to kick it all season long. You know me. This is my fourth year at sportsbookreview.com doing football, but I do want to welcome in my partner here at DFS Bachelor, Kyle Proviance. He's going to ride shotgun with me all the way through to the Super Bowl. Kyle, welcome in. Welcome to sportsbookreview.com.
Man, it has been a long time since I've been this excited, and I'm an old man, like midlife crisis.
I'm the old man. Yeah,
I'm like, in the midlife crisis stage, and I am so excited, so honored to be on with all of you guys. And before I get too far, I want to give a big shout out to all the guys, Freddie and all those guys backstage making us look good and making sure my receding hairline doesn't show too much. I am so happy, so excited. Finally talking football. It's going to be a great year. I'm really, really excited. And I just appreciate everything. And I appreciate all of you watching. I bribed a lot of you to get over here. I'm not above doing that. And I love it. So thank you all. Thanks to the people behind the screen. Thanks for Donnie. I mean, it's rare for me where I get to learn from someone live while we're doing something. So it's much appreciated. I'm truly grateful. Thank you so much.
No, it's great because I remember you being back on the channels there when we were just like, we're talking about nothing going on during the pandemic and we're just having some roundtable shows and, hey, how about Kyle, and put him on the show. I'm like, yeah, you know what? This guy's going to be really good. And we're going to have a great football season just to set the table of what we're doing here at Sportsbook. We kick it off and we let it rip during the NFL season. But during the season, of course, we're going to have the pregame shows. We're going to have some really nice graphic shows during the week designed to be a better. That's what we do at sportsbookreview.com. And if you've watched any content that we've done at sportsbookreview.com, whether it's the baseball show with me and Jason Radowitz, whether it's the NBA show with the fellas, with Jay Money, and also NHL, whatever we're doing here, fights, it's all going down. Flash with soccer, a lot of big things happening. And we always like to say to start these shows off, thank you guys for tuning in. 66,500 people have tuned in to sportsbookreview.com by hitting the subscribe button. If you want a great NFL season, if you want content, hit that subscribe button. If you haven't done it now, every time Kyle and I go live on NFL shows, you'll get it delivered directly to your inbox. Today, we are going to talk the NFC. And here's the design of the show. Throughout the summer, look, we know there's no football going on right now, but we want to keep you updated, go over some preseason clearinghouse things that when we get ready to go opening week for the NFL, you'll have all the knowledge you need to proceed and win some money. So Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays will come up. We'll hit a different division in the National Football League. And today, look, it's no surprise, Kyle. Like you see this here. You see the background. You see the Lombardi trophy up there. There's no surprise who my squad is. It's the Philadelphia Eagles. And just so the people get to know you out there also before we hit the division, NFL, who's your team? What's the deal here?
I'm a lifelong 49ers fan. Have been for, well, it's weird that I've been a 49er fan for over 30 years when I've been 21 for the last, 18 years. So it's surprising, but I'm a big 49ers fan. And this year, you're going to love me a lot this year because I like a lot of the Philly teams. I even think the Sixers, even though they lost yesterday, could be sneaky in the NBA. But I think the Eagles had one of the best off seasons in the league, quite honestly, besides the injuries. But yeah, I'm a 49ers fan. I've been betting on sports since I was 8 years old. My stepdad used to call me into the room with all of his friends and say, "Hey, Kyle, who are you going to pick?" And I was still busy trying to memorize all the stats on the back of the Dave Kingman Topps baseball card. He had like 37 seasons on there. And I'm excited to talk football. Thank God. Even though the NFC East, there's some teams in this division that are not my favorite of teams, of course, being a 49ers fan. So I'm going to have a lot of fun bagging on the Cowboys today. Sorry to you Cowboys fans.
It's all good. That's what we do here. And look, again, I hate the Dallas Cowboys just as much, being an NFC guy, being an Eagles guy, but they made me more money than any NFL team out there betting with their team total overs, which I'm a big fan of doing that. So let's not waste any more time. Thanks for you guys checking out the chat box so far. A lot of people will watch on Rewind. A lot of people are going, wait a second, how's an NFL show coming on when we're right in the middle of the NBA and the NHL playoffs and also Major League Baseball? We got to lay the groundwork for the football season. That's what we're going to do today. Let's take a look at the NFC East odds here here to win the division. Now, keep in mind also, doing videos back and we were doing roundtables and saying, what do we think about football season? These odds are certainly changing because there was a time before the draft, Kyle, that neck and neck in the NFC East with odds were the Philadelphia Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. If we take a look, the Cowboys are sitting minus 105, the Philadelphia Eagles now at plus 140, the New York Giants at 900, and the Washington football team is at 1,300. Now, I've said it time and time again, going toe-to-toe, we're going to give a quick breakdown of each team here. But when you look at the Dallas Cowboys, every year they come in this division, Kyle, it seems the same thing. They're the most talented team in the division, but for some reason, something just doesn't click. And it was usually with the head coach, who was the clapper, Jason Garrett, who's now out of town and is now the offensive coordinator for the New York Giants. But now you move in Mike McCarthy. But I got to say, Mike McCarthy had a Rolls Royce at quarterback for like 15 years and only picked up one Super Bowl when he should have had 3 or 4. Starting off early here, let's look at the Cowboys being the favorites in the division here. The coaching, the complete change there, is that a good move? Because to me, just getting rid of Garrett was a good move. But I scratch my head and be like, Mike McCarthy's your move?
Well, I'm going to come out firing with a hot take. Mike McCarthy is one of the worst head coaches I have ever seen in my life watching football. And his Rolls Royce at quarterback agrees. You see quotes from him in that blistering report where he says Mike McCarthy has the lowest IQ of any coach, football IQ, I should say. Maybe he's smart in real life. I doubt it. But the lowest football IQ he's seen from any coach. His players run the same routes. He has very vanilla offensive schemes. He doesn't understand. Trust me, Cowboys fans, you are going to be so mad when at the end of the first quarter you have one timeout left because twice during the first 5 minutes of the game, Mike McCarthy couldn't get the play call in time. And it is a head scratcher. And I know he won a Super Bowl, but this is an example of the Cowboys not being able to get out of their own way. They certainly have the most talent in the division. They are deep at wide receiver. Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper. They just drafted CeeDee Lamb. They got rid of the slow poke and Jason Witten. Blake Jarwin is certainly an upgrade to get all those snaps there. You look at running back, Ezekiel Elliott, one of the top 2 or 3 backs in the league. Their backup, Tony Pollard, a second-round pick from last year, a fantastic young running back. Big loss for them on the offensive line. Travis Frederick, obviously, that is a huge loss, losing Frederick. But when you look at the Cowboys, it starts at the top and it goes down. If you look last week, in the same day, you had Dak Prescott say, hey, the healthiest team is going to win this division. The team that can avoid this pandemic and avoid having games postponed and players out are going to win the division. They also announced the players were making their own sort of bubble situation over there in a hotel. And then that very same day, you had Jerry Jones say, oh, hey, by the way, I want my fans in the stands. Now listen, I'm not arguing that having fans in the stands is dangerous or more dangerous, but I do know that perception is reality. And if you look at what's been happening with Major League Baseball, you know, they had this whole thing set up where, hey, we're going to expand the rosters. If a player gets sick, we're going to yank him out, put another player in, follow the testing protocols. Nothing will happen. Well, that's not what happened. What happens is as soon as one person anywhere near the team tests positive, they postpone a game. So what's going to happen? So when you have your franchise quarterback and your players saying, we want to be healthy, we want to make sure we can play every game, and then you have your owner saying, we want to put 20,000 fans in the stands, what happens if 4 or 5 fans test positive, and the next thing you know, what did they touch? Where did they go? Who did they see? And then you have the Cowboys postponed. Let's say this happens on the game before Thanksgiving Day. You could see the Cowboys postpone Thanksgiving Day because their coach and their players and their owner can't get on the same page. The Cowboys, all the talent in the world, but they can never get out of their own way. So it's hard for me to trust the Dallas Cowboys.
Nick Vasilek in the chat box here. What's up, Donnie? Can't wait for the NFL. Peter Dobach in here. Taylor's in a game theory says the Cowboys offense is going to be crazy good. And also says McCarthy has already said he's not calling plays. He'll leave it to Kellen Moore. And I agree because that offense was an absolute machine. But again, something for the Cowboys just doesn't click when we take a look also at the talent on this team. You know, Michael Gallup is a decent backup wide receiver, that guy that can play the third fiddle. You have obviously Amari Cooper can be that number 1 guy, $100 million contract. You go out and from what we see, CeeDee Lamb being your slot receiver extension on the outside. That was a great pick, a great value pick for the Cowboys that always seem to go for the shiny toy. The offensive line, I think, is still going to be pretty good, but you're right. You lose a bit, you have a huge loss at center, and also we'll see if the injury to Lyle Collins, who went down, how serious that injury will be, but he's expected to be back in a couple weeks. But when I take a look at the defense, I think this is where they have to make strides, and they're already down one guy in Gerald McCoy, who would have been that nice pocket pusher for the outside defensive ends to sort of get extra pressure. He's down already, quad injury, out for the season. They actually already cut him and paid him $3 million. I do like the linebacker position here with Leighton Vander Esch and Jalen Smith. Sean Lee still hanging around here, but we know he's only going to probably be around for like 8 of the 16 games, if that, with some sort of hamstring injury that he tends to have. It's a younger secondary, but they add Clinton Dix back there. This is a really good football team, but to me, it comes down to the crux of it. Every year they're good. You saw last year, Kyle, in the division, the Philadelphia Eagles had no business whatsoever being competitive or even winning the division, playing with street ball wide receivers and practice squad players. You're winning games with Boston Scott and Ward at wide receiver and guys that have no business being in the NFL, and they won the division. When we take a look at this team now, they are the favorite, and I still think, to me, honestly, they should win the division, but something doesn't click. New coaching staff, new talent brought in here. Does it click this year when we take a look at it? Because, again, you're bringing up some good points here with the home crowd atmosphere. And Adam Schefter also tweeted today that some NFL teams, or all NFL teams, might be able to use crowd noise. We'll see how that factors in and what they can actually do with it. But you're looking at some areas here, specifically for the Cowboys. You're supposed to open up in Los Angeles for the Rams. You know, it would be a packed house, probably more Cowboys fans than Rams there, but it would be a dome. It would be loud. No fans are probably going to be there. Week 2, they'll be home to Atlanta and you know, Dallas, they're probably going to have fans there. But week 3, you would head up to Seattle. You would play with the 12th man, a rousing crowd that would get on your nerves trying to snap the football. Probably going to be no fans there. So I think they luck out early to start the season. I think they can get a quick start out of the gates here.
Yeah, and they can. And you just talked about in the chat, the Cowboys offense is going to be great this year. They were great last year.
Yes.
They were second in the league in passing. Actually, they were the top. They were the top team actually in passing all year up until that last week. They were 5th in the NFL in rushing. They were also very solid in defense, top 10 in passing defense, 11th in rushing defense. The problem is they can't get out of their own way. We hear Stephen A. Smith say it all the time, and it cracks me up because it's true. They just can't get out of their own way. And you're absolutely right that Jason Garrett needed to go. I think his message was getting old. But then you bring in Mike McCarthy. I honest to God, I would hire my 15-year-old son to coach that team before, and he doesn't watch sports. He doesn't give a damn about sports. I would hire him before Mike McCarthy. I just don't get it. So I worry about their ability to make good decisions, manage the game, and use challenges correctly, call timeouts correctly, have the right packages in. I mean, Aaron Rodgers used to complain over and over again. He doesn't even have the right packages on for the down and distance. So you can have all the talent in the world and all the numbers in the world, but we know these are all NFL players, and a lot of games are very, very close. The Cowboys need to figure out a way to win those close games. Are they going to be able to do that with a less than stellar head coach? I question that.
Yeah, I always like to joke about Mike McCarthy, too, because on his way out the door in Green Bay, I remember all the kerfuffles that were popping up and guys saying, look, man, we're supposed to be out here. We're supposed to be playing football and getting ready for this game. And he's out getting massages and skipping team meetings. So we'll see how all in he is. It's just interesting. It's one of those guys that I guess Jerry sits down and says, hey, look, you're going to be the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to get paid a lot of money. I'm going to call the shots behind the scenes. As long as you're fine with that, you could be head coach here, which is when Bill Parcells got brought in to sort of change everything around. And then when you try to tell Bill Parcells, like, hey, Bill, I think you should start this guy. And he says, hey, you stay up in your owner's box. It doesn't go all that well. So you need that sort of give and take if you do want to be the Dallas Cowboys head coach, because a lot of that information, a lot of that stuff is going to actually come from Jerry Jones. Hakeem Walker in the chat box. Eagles winning the division hold on, let me see. Sometimes people write stuff in the chat box. It's hard to get through. Eagles winning division last is not surprising. Okay, last year, yes. See, that gets through my old brain, and it sort of whipples around and still went 8-8 last year. And I agree, because that's the crux of the argument here. Can the Dallas Cowboys, with all that talent, come together? It's hard to do with a new coaching staff. But then again, it's not a rookie head coach taking the helm, and they do have some components and pieces. I'm glad they kept, the offensive coordinator who had that machine humming. And we'll see now with Dak Prescott, Kyle, that $35 million contract this year. He's got to live up up to the hype, hopefully breaking the bank if they do have a good season. But that's the Dallas Cowboys here. We'll keep it moving. Let's switch it over to my Philadelphia Eagles as we take a look and already went over some of the odds that come in. The Eagles now sitting at plus 140. I was doing videos right around draft time and saying, wait a second here. You know, these teams are neck and neck. Both teams totals at 9.5, which I thought they both would be able to get over. But I'm getting depressed here early with the news coming out. Not that I don't like the players on the Philadelphia Eagles, because I do, but you're looking at Derek Barnett down with an injury. Hargrave already down with an injury, the defensive tackle that they got from the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're looking at guys for linebacker. You signed some, guys from depth, and maybe they can start retiring because they don't want to show up with COVID. The same as Marquise Goodwin, the wide receiver that you wanted to add a little bit more speed from San Francisco. He is also sitting out the season. Made some nice additions to their secondary. Carson Wentz should take that leap, who he was phenomenal last year with 0 weapons. Now he gets the Sean Jackson back. We'll see if Alshon Jeffrey, how quickly he returns back there. You get some young help in the draft with some speedy wide receivers. The downplay here is the offensive line still should be really good, but you had the best guard in football, Brandon Brooks, that's down for the season with an Achilles injury. You had Jason Peters come out. He's going to try to fill into that spot. You have a younger left tackle that's now going to be in the spotlight who wasn't ready to perform last year, which is why Jason Peters was the starting left tackle. There's a lot of talent in the Philadelphia Eagles, but you're right. Who's going to be healthy and who's going to be healthy to start this season is my biggest question right now with the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, and you're 100% right. And I think the biggest positive you could take from last year was Carson Wentz stayed healthy despite all of those injuries. I mean, they were starting J.J. Arcega-Whiteside and Greg Ward. And I mean, you saw the plethora of injuries and they had a terrible secondary. But it was really nice to see Carson Wentz stay healthy, play in the postseason. And the work that he did with those limited weapons has really got to encourage you this year. And then you get to this year and you see, of course, I mean, Alshon Q. Jeffrey. That's what I call him. He's questionable every single week. Since he played with Chicago, he is questionable every single week. But, and you started getting worried in this offseason with Deshaun Jackson. You thought, oh, God, is he going to be suspended or are they going to release him? Because, it's just a different environment that we all play in. And you brought up a great point about the over-under totals. I do think there's some interesting value in going the under if you're one of those people that think games are going to be postponed or canceled. It's going to be hard to hit those overs when you're at 9.5 and 10 if you lose 3 games or 2 games or even 1 game.
They would actually take those down from the books there, but I get your opinion because I'm on the same wavelength on unders for a different reason, and it's guys actually testing positive. You know what I mean? Like you go into a season in fantasy, if you're a big fantasy football guy, big fantasy guy, you go into the season with expectations that there's 16 games that you're going to get 16 games out of your player. And that's what it's actually focused on. We're not saying like, hey, if you're a good running back and you should get 1,000 yards, well, maybe he's only going to play 13. No. They're factoring in 16 games at, 80 yards a game. And that's what you get out of it. How about from that point of view is saying like, well, if you're banking on Carson Wentz, if he that's like 4 weeks, at least 3 weeks. If he tests positive, he's out. It's an interesting point.
Yeah. And it's also a great draft pick by the Eagles getting Jalen Hurts. Yeah. Right. Now, again, rookie quarterbacks, we've seen some examples. You remember Ben Roethlisberger and Russell Wilson and Kyler Murray I thought was really, really good as a rookie. So it's going to be tough. And that's a great point. And those are things that we have to think about going into this NFL season. This is different than any NFL season we've seen since probably the replacement players, the strike shortened season of 1987. Right when when the replacement players are playing, and by the way, shout out to Jerry Rice, 22 touchdowns in 12 games in a strike short season. Come on, so just to throw some love to my 49ers there. But you're right. So there's a lot of things to consider, and I think the unders are very, very interesting because of that point. Now, are we gonna get some of that wrong? Of course. I mean, there's always this surprise sort of situation that happens, but I do like the Eagles package as well because I think I think you'll see Jalen Hurts sort of used in a Taysom Hill type of role, like they do in New Orleans. He's got that athletic ability. He can run, he can throw, he can catch. So it wouldn't surprise me if in goal line situations you see Jalen Hurts out there. And I think it's a great addition to the team. And the Eagles made the best for all the teams in the NFL. And I really thought even in the NFL draft, teams really addressed their needs. They didn't overthink things. You really saw this with that digital draft where like, hey, we need help with this besides the Green Bay Packers, which we'll get to in our next video on Friday. But every other team really, really, focused on their needs. The Eagles secondary last year was absolutely terrible. One of the worst secondaries in the league. They have one of the best front sevens. They still do. And that's going to continue to happen. But then they go and add one of the top 5 cover man corners in the league in Darius Slay. They add nickel Roby Coleman, who was a fantastic slot cover man for the Rams last year. They really addressed the situation. And then when we're talking about coaching, Doug Peterson is a fantastic coach. Love him or hate him. It looks like sometimes he drank too much whiskey the night before. His eyes are red and we don't know what the hell is going on there. But the man is a fantastic coach, a backup quarterback, from the early 90s. I like Doug Peterson a lot. I like the moves that they've made. You brought up a great point with the Miles Sanders injury today, the lower body, what they're calling it. According to a source, he's going to be ready to play the regular season. They did lose Jordan Howard. And, for all the grief that Jordan Howard gets for not, being this explosive player, he was still a 10 touchdown guy and a guy you could rely on to not fumble the football. So you're right. Boston Scott is supposed to take over that role. They need a healthy Miles Sanders. They need Deshaun Jackson to still be as fast as he was. But I'm very encouraged by seeing Carson Wentz. What he did with a limited cast, I thought was incredibly impressive. I like the Eagles a lot. And if you're looking at value in the division, I'll take that plus number on the Eagles all day long because I think the Cowboys will get in their own way.
No, and you bring up some interesting stuff there because when you're talking about the Eagles, you're banking on Carson Wentz having a good year. And also, let's keep in mind, in the NFC East, there's only one team in the NFC East that has an intact coaching staff from last year, and that's the Eagles. You're talking about a new coaching staff in Dallas, the Giants, and the Washington Redskins. And especially in this COVID pandemic era where you're saying, hey, we can't even get these guys on the field in the offseason. These guys already know the playbook. Jim Schwartz already has his defenders out there, what they know, what they can't do. So that's a big added advantage coming in. And keep in mind, we're not going to have any preseason games where you can even work out the kinks. You throw in the headset, you're going live in the first week of the NFL season, and that's going to be a big boon. I like the Rieger draft pick. The Jalen Hurts one was really questionable to me, but we'll see how it flips out. And again, you don't know what happens, and maybe you flip him later for a higher draft pick, or maybe he turns out to be a good football player. The one thing we know in the NFL is if you have a really good quarterback and you have a really good backup quarterback, you can sustain through the season. Case in point, the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl with Carson Wentz playing at an MVP level, and then Nick Foles coming in to finish the job. You look at the stats from last year, and they're really down. But then again, who did they have? Even coming down the stretch, like Miles Sanders gets banged up, and it's Boston Scott. In the last game of the season, they have to win to clinch the division. You're out here without Zach Ertz, and your leading receiver is Greg Ward. They made miracles on offense last year to push it through, and that has a lot to do with how good the head coach is. Now, looking again, the team total is at 9.5, and with plus money, I still think both the Eagles and the Cowboys can reach their double-digit wins, or at least think one of the two would, so you can't lose money doing it. I'm still going to go with the same videos that I put out way back, where these two teams will be neck and neck in the division. I think they can both sneak over the total and get double-digit wins. No,
and I agree. And I'm glad you brought up Jim Schwartz, because when you think about how Jim Schwartz coaches his defenses, he likes to be aggressive. He likes to blitz. That Eagles front seven is nasty. And now you bring in two elite man cover corners. That's only going to free up Jim Schwartz even more. Last year at the end of the year, he couldn't do that because Rasul Douglas and Jalen Mills, and I know I'm leaving one guy out. You'll know all the players from last year better than I will. He's such an aggressive defensive coach. I think these additions really fit. They're bringing in Will Parks to replace Malcolm Jenkins. And, that's
Rasul Douglas is in there. They're sliding a couple guys back to try to, match up with that tandem back there. But I do actually agree with moving on from Malcolm Jenkins, because you want to do it 1 year sooner than 1 year later. He wanted a lot of money, got it in New Orleans. So I don't have that big of an issue with Malcolm Jenkins being gone.
Right. And an underrated addition, Javon Hargrave from Pittsburgh. That Pittsburgh defense was mean, and he was a fantastic interior alignment for that team, for a team that was already third in rushing defense last year. They were the number 3 team in the league in rushing defense. I like the Eagles a lot. We just hope they can stay healthy. I thought it was encouraging that Carson Wentz did that last year. And to answer Hakeem Walker's question, the Eagles they might sign Jadeveon Clowney. I heard that the 49ers, my 49ers are also in the running. I think he's a key piece. It'll be interesting to see. And you made a great point, too, about coaching staffs who are together. So the Cowboys, even though they kept Kellen Moore, there's going to be different verbiage and and packages and stuff like that. How much work are they able to do without any preseason games and evaluate these players? Doug Peterson's a fantastic coach, same coaching staff, same system, same quarterback, same defensive coordinator, adding man. You don't have to coach man coverage. Man coverage is uncoachable. That's just get out there and shut your man down. I like the Eagles quite a bit.
Yeah, Schwartz with that wide 9. You figure you have hopefully a Brandon Graham that's going to be healthy on one end, Derek Barnett healthy, and the whole push they made was, and you forget also, Malik Jackson basically played 2 snaps last year for the Philadelphia Eagles, broke his foot game 1 versus Washington, didn't see him again. So their theory is let's go Fletcher Cox, let's go with Hargrave, let's go with Malik Jackson and really push the pocket to open up the defensive ends, because when you play the wide 9, you can certainly collapse, and that'll allow Fletcher Cox to get upfield. Linebackers a little bit down but the Eagles never really put all that much into it. Nigel Bradham had a nice run, but again, time for him to go as well. If there's one weak spot where you don't have superstars that say, you know what, I got Ray Lewis in the middle, it's probably the linebacker position. But the Eagles should be competitive this year. It's going to be a fun NFC top end of the division. So let's not waste any time and sort of dip into the bottom end of the division. And we'll start with the New York Giants here, plus 900 to win the NFC East. A team total sitting at 6, minus 115. Joe Judge comes in as the coach, right? And I look because there's a different mindset between high school, college, and the professionals. When you take a look at what you can get away with college, you're going to respect me. You're going to listen to me. It's the scholarship that you're here on under me. I can take it away. I can force you to fourth string. In the NFL, you can't do that. In the NFL, the player goes, here's my contract. I make way more than you. So let's hear it out here and let's see what you got to do. And already from his opening presser talking about where he's basically a high school coach in the way he's going to run it. And then word leaks out in Giants camp, which is coming directly from players. We're running coaches and we're running players laps in case they make a mistake. Coaches, 60-year-old coaches are doing laps because maybe they called the wrong, play in the defensive backfield. It's amazing to see, and it usually turns bad. If you remember Tom Coughlin there, same coach, being in New York, hey guys, no hat, feet on the ground, don't fall asleep, sit up straight. And Michael Strahan and the boys say, hey coach, you want to make it in the NFL and here in New York? That ain't happening here. They came to an agreement and voila, won a couple Super Bowls. So we'll see how it turns out here for Joe Judge. But I'm not high on the Giants starting the season just with the coaching staff alone. Do they have some talent? Saquon Barkley? Yes. Did they add some pieces on defense? Yes. But it all comes down to how well Daniel Jones progresses in this system. I don't think they're going to challenge for the NFC East. 6 wins can be possible. But boy, Kyle, when we talk about getting a start to the season and starting off fast with a new coach, Pittsburgh, Chicago, San Francisco, Rams, Dallas, then you get Washington, and then you come back with Philadelphia and Tampa Bay. Might be a tough start here for the young coach. Yeah,
they could be 1-7, and you're 100% right. It's so silly. Like, it's weird that a coach would be doing that to other coaches. Look at what's been going on in the world, right? Like, it's very obvious that we need to take ourselves less seriously, appreciate the good things, respect people a little bit, and enjoy it. And he's like, well, guess what? You're a 60-year-old coach and you don't do something right, you're going to run a lap. Now, I hope that's all in jest. I don't know. The New York Giants, another team that can't get out of their own way. I actually like the hire of Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator. They need some stability with a guy who's played quarterback and who knows quarterbacks, especially with Eli Manning now gone. And, I've spent a lot of years making fun of Eli Manning and saying he has a pouty, punchable face and all that stuff, but he's actually a pretty fun guy, and he was a great mentor for Daniel Jones last year. We saw it. This team is very prone to turning the football over. Daniel Jones has all the athletic tools you could want in a quarterback. He can run, he can throw. He still seems to make bad decisions. They are going, you're going to get 2 or 3 healthy games of Evan Ingram. Right. I mean, he never stays healthy for more than 2 or 3 games, and he's very talented. But they are going to have Sterling Shepard back, Darius Slayton, Golden Tate. So there's a lot of weapons there for the Giants. The problem for the Giants is they cannot stop the pass, and I don't see anywhere where they help themselves. One of their up-and-coming young corners, DeAndre Baker, apparently is crazy, and him and his buddy from Seattle are out there robbing people at gunpoint during a pandemic, and it doesn't make any sense. I do love the addition of James Bradbury from Carolina. James Bradbury is a fantastic young corner. If you remember, like 5 or 6 years ago, James Bradbury was getting torched for 400 yards by Julio Jones when he played out in Carolina. He has really grown into a really nice player. I don't mind the addition of Kyle Kyler Fackrell, Blake Martinez. We've talked a little bit about the Packers because of Mike McCarthy. Blake Martinez is a good young linebacker, but the defense can't stop anybody. The offense is going to turn the football over. Their best players are those running backs and wide receivers, and the few games you're going to get out of Evan Ingram. I just don't know if that's enough to sustain. And the NFC is going to be a tough conference this year. And that division, the Eagles and Cowboys are way more talented. So I'm just kind of meh on the Giants. Just like you brought up the Pittsburgh game week 1. That's one of my favorite. It's like plus 3.5 right now or something. Pittsburgh minus 3.5. I think Pittsburgh blows them out week 1. And so that's one of my favorite early week 1 parlays, along with your Eagles at -6.
Yeah, let me see what we got here. A week 1 opening lines, as you know, we talked about the Philadelphia Eagles. They're going to open up against Washington. That sits between 6 and 6.5, depending on where we're shopping. At the Monday night game, yes, the Giants does sit at 3.5 currently. And when you take a look again, just some things with the Giants, when you're trying to bet a team total, it's not so much like depending on what the team actually does itself, but usually who you play, who's healthy late in the season, because we don't know who's going to be there weeks 12, 13, 14, and 15. But look, we went over the tough start of the season. They get Cincinnati out of the bye on the road. So, it's already hard enough to win on the road in the NFL as is. But then you have Seattle, Arizona, Cleveland, Baltimore, and Dallas to end the season. It's going to be hard-pressed to get over that 7 number for the New York Giants with a new, everything going around. And heaven forbid if, your all-world running back, Saquon Barkley, is beat up by then or misses a couple games. Good luck on the young quarterback trying to improve himself. But I would lean towards going the under team total. As I said, I like the overs with the Eagles and the Dallas Cowboys. I like the under 6 because it's going to take 7 to beat you. And I just don't see 7 wins out there so far. Thanks, everybody there checking in the chat box. I know Hakeem Walker said, will the Eagles sign Clowney? Also, keep in mind, Clowney's out there. And also news, I believe, I can't remember the beat writer who actually reported it here, but it was not Mike Freeman.
It's that damn midlife crisis. We're getting old. We can't remember everything,
No, I was just actually looking at it, too, who was actually retweeting it out here. But Yannick Ngakoue, over the next 24 to 48 hours, will be traded from Jacksonville. Right. So we'll see if that keeps up, and we'll see where he ends up. But let's keep going here. Last team in the division and the most topsy-turvy team in the division. Let's cut out the sexual harassment lawsuits. Let's cut out the new head coach hires. Let's cut out the new front office. Let's cut out the women that are going to be calling games in the booth. All that stuff, just remove that from the equation alone with owner Daniel Snyder and try to just focus on the football team itself. There is talent in Washington, but again, they're coming in here plus 13 to win the NFC East and a team total of 5. I like what they did in the draft. Added, Antonio Gandy-Gold in the 4th round, a kid out of Liberty that I think is going to be pretty good. Chase Young, we all know. He's almost one of those can't-miss guys coming into the NFL unless he gets hurt. That's a nice move. I think the defense is okay. I like the move to Ron Rivera to add stability to the franchise. I'm not a big believer in Dwayne Haskins one bit, but having said that, we'll see if they can take it to the next level. And the next level is only 5 wins. So it's not like we're going to make the playoffs or, battle for 500. You're just looking to have a regular season. I don't have very many good things to say about the Washington Redskins. But again, when you're talking NFL football, it's about how your quarterback will progress. Because if they think Dwayne Haskins is going to be their stud, he's got to take that next step this year. And he looked lost in a lot of occurrences, showed some flashes, but I wasn't overly impressed. And I'm not that impressed coming in. Clearly the 4th best quarterback to me in the division. And that's where you win, Kyle.
That's it. And I got to tell you, I made a ton of money in fantasy football last year, daily fantasy, betting against Dwayne Haskins, because I told everyone who would listen, he is not ready for the pro game, and he's going to turn the football over. And he did. And he showed a little bit of flashes at the end of the year. And, of course, they have the one really bright spot for that offense is Terry McLaurin, who was, Dwayne Haskins' teammate at Ohio State. Anytime Case Keenum was the quarterback, I wanted all the Terry McLaurin I could get because I knew Case Keenum could throw a viable ball. But when it was Dwayne Haskins, he's going to turn the football over. A few things to consider here. Riverboat Ron was not on the staff when they drafted Dwayne Haskins. Alex Smith, and listen, I'm a lifelong 49ers fan. I have a love-hate relationship with Alex Smith. We talked about Mike McCarthy earlier. He's the guy who said Alex Smith is the better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. So a big, if I was allowed to swear to Mike McCarthy for that, because that's just painful.
Yeah.
Alex Smith, if for some reason he can start, I do think it improves the chances.
No way.
Oh, Dwayne Haskins is so bad. He's so bad. And how much growth A lot of times you see these rookie quarterbacks, they grow from year 1 to year 2 because they get to work with the team in the offseason, they get the OTAs, they get the preseason. How much growth can Dwayne Haskins have? Alex Smith is not a great quarterback, but he won't turn the football over. He won't throw 3 interceptions a game. And it's one of the coolest stories I've ever seen. That dude's leg looked terrible. You see those pictures? It's one of the coolest stories. And you got to look for the positives when you're talking about the Washington footballs, because you got Darius Geis just getting released. And I mean, you're seeing report like Darius Geis will probably never play another down in the NFL.
He's done.
He's gone.
Old man Adrian Peterson. I mean, that's what you're basically left with.
Antonio Gibson, their 3rd round draft pick, could be someone that you look at as a sleeper. There's just not a lot of talent there. Peyton Barber. They signed 47,000-year-old Thomas Davis to play linebacker, and that defense was not terrible last year. They were decent against the pass, second to last against the run, of course. And they have Reuben Foster. It's like Washington just wants to bring the people with the most character issues.
Baggage.
It used to be the Raiders and the Cowboys that did this, and even the Cowboys brought in Alvin Smith. We didn't talk about that, but it's kind of interesting. I do like the addition of Kendall Fuller to the secondary, but they just don't have any weapons. Like, I know what's the 5.5 is +1, going over 5.5 is +100. Like, if I can find a site that will say under 3, I'd probably take that juice, because I don't know how many games Washington can win. I really don't. I think their only chance is to have some sort of veteran with some leadership. And you're not wrong by laughing at me saying Alex Smith, because trust me, you don't know how much Alex Smith has caused me pain in my life. But Dwayne Haskins is really, really bad, and they haven't had time to work together. So I don't know how much of an impact Riverboat Ron can have on the young quarterback.
Those back in the day where the 49ers were up and coming with Alex Smith, young Frank Gore. How about that? Still playing in the NFL at this point. But looking at the overall picture, like, to me, Alex Smith, it is an unbelievable, great comeback story. But it's one of those where I'm like saying, like, I think his wife or his family or even the organization say, hey, look, we know you wanted to come back on your own terms. You got, quote unquote, cleared to play football. Yeah. We're going to still pay you. Why don't you go home at this point here? Because I don't think it's in his best interest, because we're not talking like a 24-year-old, 25-year-old kid stepping in and saying, hey, I can still get out of the way here. I would be surprised if he ever takes an NFL snap, or even if he does, maybe say, you know what? Why don't we send you out in style? But then again, you're not going to go out to any fans, right? He's not going to get a snap to end the game where you get a standing ovation from 80,000 people like, hey, man, thanks for everything you've done and all this stuff. And, maybe the team will do it for him. I don't know, but I'm not expecting all that much from Alex Smith. And again, this comes down to what we talked about with the Giants. We don't know how the season is going to progress, what teams are actually going to be good after weeks 5 or 6. But when you start the season off with the Redskins, the Eagles, at Arizona, who, again, this isn't Arizona of, it's a pushover team. That team's looking to take the next step. At Cleveland, Baltimore, the Rams. Now, again, I don't think the Giants are very good, but I think the Giants are better than Washington. That's on the road. And Dallas. You literally can look at, 7 games up to the bye. How many wins are going to be there in that spot? And that's how you're judged, because if you're opening up the season easy and you say you get out of the gate, if you're them 3-3, hey, everybody's excited, we can make the playoffs. You have a completely different mindset in the second half of the season when you go into your bye. We get 1-6. Like, I don't feel like playing. It's the pandemic. How much am I really going to spend here? I'm just looking forward to get the next year. That's what you have a worry with. But 5 is such a low number in the NFL. Like, you have to be abysmal to win 4 games in the NFL. So it's hard to bet against or to say the under. But then again, you have to look at the positive and say, well, they need to get the 6 wins to cash this.
Yeah, I can't see it. I cannot find the 6 wins. I went through that schedule because I wanted to come out with the hot take and say the Washington Snyders would, somehow cover and just, get some people fired up and tell me I'm dumb. I couldn't find it. And I think Ron Rivera is a really good coach. I really do. I just don't think he's going to have the time to work with his team. And like you said, I think that's a great point. If you start out 0-4 and, your contract's guaranteed, or, 0-6, I guess it's after week 6 when the years get locked in for your free agency qualification for the next year, you might see a lot of players like, hey, screw it, I'm out of here. I have no desire to be here. Our team doesn't even have a name. We're throwing 30 picks a game. We decided to trot out Alex Smith on half a leg at quarterback in week 5 because things were so bad. It's a rugged situation there in Washington. That's a team. Just pass on all of it. their big acquisition this last week was Dontrell Inman. Okay, and I like Dontrell Inman. I still watched him play. I've watched him live in San Diego and everything else. But it's like, come on, there's just no weapons there. Sammy Gibbs and that's a hot mess.
The one thing you do have to like with Washington, though, specifically, is when you do get a new football coach, like Ron Rivera's got a 5-year deal, he's not going anywhere. So you think you're going to get maximum effort because when the coach is on his way, maybe out the door, you're like, dude, you ain't going to be here next year. I might be here next year. So I'm not going to give it my all the last 3 games to make sure that I'm here next year earning a paycheck. So the one thing I think you'll get is these players playing hard for Ron Rivera, but it all comes down to the quarterback. If he's not going to make the reads or progress, it doesn't matter what anybody else on the football team does, because if your offense is not humming in today's NFL, you can't just rely on your 2000 Baltimore Ravens defense and say, hey, get us 10 points or we're going to win this game. It just doesn't happen anymore. But that is the NFC East here, Kyle. The Dallas Cowboys sitting atop the division odds-wise, the bottom of the division, the Washington football team. Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays right here on sportsbookreview.com. We're going to go live and talk a different division in football. We're going to keep it NFC before we switch over to AFC. Next, we're going to go with the NFC Norris division, which is going to be a great one here. These teams are stacked up. Green Bay Packers is going to be the Minnesota Vikings. We'll have a lot of stuff here to come on, but it's nice just to kick off the opening kickoff here, Kyle, football season with sportsbookreview.com. The guys are doing a great thing with college football as well. If you're not watching those guys doing that, this is going to be the start. I know you don't see football on TV, but trust me, it's going to be there September 10th to open up, and we will be ready right here on sportsbookreview.com. For Donnie Seymour, he's Kyle Proviance. This is sportsbookreview.com, and this is your NFL show.